Thelamasseep here, and I am here to talk about the thing, that just gets me triggered that I have to talk about: nutrition. What we are eating and what it does for our bodies. And we just need to understand what that is. So, everything about how we feel, how we look, how we act, our health in general. If we're going to be sick as we get older, we're going to be healthy as we get older. Are our kids going to be healthier? It's all about the food. It's just that easy. It's all about the food. So everything is about the food. Everything that we put in our body is about how our body's going to respond. So I'm here to be able to share this with you. What I want to do is be able to give you some information so you can figure it out yourself, and you know what you're eating, you know what's going to happen, and then you can start asking more questions and being able to determine for yourself what you want to do and for the people that you love, okay? So why do you need to know this? It is the key to your health and the ones that you love. You understand why you feel like crap. You understand why you feel great. Because you know what it's going to be related to. You're going to see the difference between eating certain things and drinking certain things, and then how you feel eating other things. That's what you want to start really paying attention to, making those changes and doing things that make you feel good. That's the goal. And look good too. That's an additional benefit. We're gonna take care of that right now. So we start getting some basic nutrition information. There are only 3 things that food is made of. All food and things that we drink are made of these 3 things. And when we take them into our body, each one does something different in the body, and it gives the body instructions, and it's what it's supposed to use for energy. Carbohydrates, fats, proteins. That's it. Everything that we eat and drink, everything that you take in that you think of, is either a carbohydrate, a fat, or a protein, or a combination of 2 or 3, or those 3. And then the other very important thing we have to have is water. So carbohydrates, these are called macronutrients. The carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. These are macronutrients. There are large nutrients. We have some micronutrients, which are vitamins and minerals that we also need. But these are our big ones. Carbohydrates. When we eat carbohydrates, they break down to sugar. That's all you need to know. Really. Carbohydrates are all the stuff that are delicious. It's what, when we refer to sugar is a carbohydrate. So if you were going to spoon sugar on your cereal or in your coffee, or if you're going to eat pasta, that pasta is going to break down into sugar. And it's going to be used by your cells for energy. So it doesn't matter if it is, in general, if it is pasta, bread, rice, candy, fruit, vegetables, all of that gets broken down into sugar molecules that your body can use for energy. That's the first energy source. It's the fastest energy source. Okay, got that? Remember, carbohydrates break down to sugar. I want you to say it. Carbohydrates break down to sugar. Good. Next one is fat. Fats are also used as sugar. Now, when we think of fat, we either think of probably the fat on our body to make us nice and thick, or when you're hearing something about in food, stay away from fat, stay away from fat. Natural fats that we've been having in our food, like meats, for example, are natural, and our body responds very well to those. There is controversy, and the bottom line is natural fats that we have in nature have not been found to be a problem to a human body. So fat is another energy source. That's the reason why when we need to save food for later, in case we don't have food, for thousands of years, there's not been grocery stores where we can just go in and buy food. we had to either forage for our food. We had to go we had to go hunt. So when there's no food, the extra calories that we had in abundance, the body saves as fat for later. So then when you need to get up and go find some food and you don't have any, there's a savings account, and your body starts going to the savings account. So if you have a bunch of fat on your body, then you have a nice healthy savings account. And we all wish that our bank savings account is as big as some of our body's saving account, right? So that fat savings account, when we don't have food coming in, your body will go and start burning the fat. And it'll give you energy for the cells, and everything's fine. When we have an abundance of carbohydrates and fats coming in, then your body's going to save that as fat for later. So when we're eating certain things, and we don't need all that energy at that time. If we're just sitting and maybe studying or maybe watching the video, it's going to store it as fat because we don't need that much energy right now. We're not doing activity and running and doing a bunch of stuff. Then it gets stored as fat. The third one, protein. Protein is a builder. Okay, I might have preferences. Protein is my favorite. I love all of them, but protein is my favorite. The reason why protein is my favorite is because everything is built with protein. All the things that we have in our body is made with protein, pretty much. And the body doesn't want to just when we eat protein, it doesn't want to go and store it for fat or just use it for energy. It needs to build tissue. So all of these tissue structures, our bones and all of the chemicals in our bodies, all those things, it's made with protein. So that's very important that we get, and we don't hear about that enough, how much we need protein in our diet. Okay, carbohydrates and fats for energy, and that's energy for our cells. The cells are the ones that are doing the work. We just supply the food to the cells to do the work so we can survive. And then protein is to build structures. Got it? Okay, next. Then we have, how do we know what's in what we're eating? I want you to get really good with a nutrition label. And that's not going to be hard to do because there is not that much on a nutrition label. This is what we need. We need to look at the serving size. So the serving size here, number one. Then you don't really have to look at calories at this point, but I want you to understand where the calories are. Fat, here are our three macronutrients. Fat, carbohydrates, and protein. Fat, carbohydrates, and protein. And we are going to look at how much there is and then get an idea of what we're eating. And then, is it going to be used for energy? Am I going to use it to build? Is it going to be used for energy and I'm not going to use that energy, it's going to be stored as fat? Or do I have a nice amount of energy and then also enough protein to build structure? That's what you're going to be looking at. That's the first thing we're going to learn. Pretty much that's what we're learning in this video, okay? So when we look at fat, then we look at protein. And this is Kraft Mac and Cheese. On the fats, we have 11 grams of fat here. Then we have carbohydrates, 50 grams, and we have protein, 10 grams. As we just saw, fat is a longer term energy source for our cells. Carbohydrate, 50. We're looking at this. This is the major thing we're getting out of here, is a bunch of sugar. So this is going to break down to sugar for our cells to use. And if we don't use that, it's going to be stored as fat. And this one is the first one that's going to be used. This will be stored as fat before this is used as the energy. So carbohydrates are used first. That's primary, and there's a lot here. And so we'll have a lot of carbohydrates to burn off, and then after that's burned off, and we burn off the carbohydrates that are stored, then we'll start going to fat. So the body's going to store that fat. Then protein. Now the protein is totally separate from energy source. It's going to be broken down and used to build. So when you look at a nutrition label, all the nutrition labels look the same. You're going to look at fat, carbohydrates, and protein and get an idea of which one is the majority when I'm looking at it. Here, it's going to be, I'm going to have a lot of sugar broken down here. And then fat. So predominantly I'm eating a bunch of energy that's going, if I don't really need that much energy, then it's going to be stored for later, usually as fat. And then we have some protein, 10 grams of protein to build structures. So our carbohydrates, again, all carbohydrates break down into a type of sugar used for energy to survive or stored for later as fat. Examples: fruit, vegetables, candy, soda, fruit juices, bread, pasta, rice, flour, popcorn, potatoes, cookies, muffins, cakes, frappuccinos, breakfast cereals. Oh, don't get me started on breakfast cereals. That's just candy and then add some milk. All of it's the same. The body doesn't care if it's candy or if it was pasta. It's going to break down into a type of sugar to be able to use and then store later for fat if it doesn't need it. Or there's something else like a easier source that it stores before it stores into fat. Most processed foods include sugar, some added sugar, especially if they have removed fat. It's easy to overdose on sugar. All right, this is the fun stuff. Let's look at some labels. Important labels I want you to start off learning about. The juices. This is Coca-Cola. And Coca-Cola, you might hear these things. Soda's so bad for you and blah, blah, blah. Let's look at it. We have the serving size. That was the first one thing we're going to look at. It's 240 milliliters. When we look at the other ones, they're going to be the same amount of fluid. So this is all comparable. Then we look at carbohydrates. We have to look at fat. The fats are 0. Carbohydrates, which that's sugar, and that's 27 grams. And we have protein, 0. So what do we have here? We have all sugar. That's probably not a surprise when we're talking about a soda. So that's going to be all sugar. Then we have 100% pure Florida orange juice. So for the orange juice, and it's pure, and then we've been told the orange juice is healthy, but if we look at it, also, you really can't tell the difference between the orange juice and the Coca-Cola. When we look at the serving size, it's 200, we're talking about similar, the same, 240 milliliters. Carbohydrates is 27 grams, same as the Coca-Cola. Sugars here, they have it 22 grams, that would be added sugar here, and 27 grams there. And it doesn't identify where the other 5 grams are. And then it has 2 grams of protein. So that's the biggest difference here, 2 grams of protein. But if you look at it, this is really just a high sugar dose. That's it. Then let's look at a smoothie. We have a all natural by Fruit Simple, all natural strawberry banana smoothie, fruit smoothie. So of course smoothies it's fresh fruit, and we would think that's very healthy. And if we think straight doses of sugar are healthy for us, then it is healthy because it is a fast, rapid dose of sugar right into your bloodstream. That's not always healthy unless you're going to use that energy right now. So this serving size is the same, as we can see. And then Fat, of course, is 0, like the others. Look at the carbohydrates. There's 35 grams of carbohydrates here, which this has even more sugar in it. That's going to be just straight into the bloodstream. And then there's 1 gram of protein. So when you're drinking these juices, they are all straight sugar doses, just sugar hits that over and over and over and over again regularly ends up not being very healthy for those that are genetically susceptible. And you would start knowing that, especially as you gain weight, is one of the signs and symptoms of that. Let's look at, this is just for entertainment because I loved me some caramel Frappuccino. Oh, when Starbucks came out and had the caramel Frappuccino, I love me a caramel Frappuccino. So here, this one is about 3 times the amount almost of the fluid. It's a lot more milliliters. So here, look at the fat. There is 17 grams of fat and 73 grams of sugar in there. So this is just fat and sugar, and it does have 6 grams of protein. But when we're talking about the majority of what you're going to get out of this, when you're going and just having a caramel Frappuccino, you are telling your body, please put in the sugar and fat, and if I'm not going to use it, store it for later. I want some more. I want some more fat added on so I can have it for later. That's pretty much what you're telling your body. And we can easily look at the calorie breakdown if you want to look at it in colors. This gray part right here is fat. This pink part is the carbohydrates or the sugars. So this whole entire section is for energy. And if we don't use the energy, we store it. We're going to store it as fat for later. Then we have this little amount that's going to be broken down for protein. But most of it is going to be for storage if we're not going to use that energy. And most of the time we don't use that much energy unless you're pretty athletic or your body is burning really fast. You would know because you always stay skinny. So it's not an issue for you at this point. Okay, let's talk about fats by itself. So fats are the highest source of energy, which means the body can use fat and burn a lot more energy from it than it does from carbohydrates, from the sugar. And it's an excellent energy source. It's easily stored for later in our fat cells. It's important in our cellular formation, which means all of our body cells are covered in fat. Their outside covering is made with fat. Our brains are predominantly made of fat. So fat is a good thing, believe it or not. It's a great thing. We need fats. And some of those fats that we take in are carrying very important vitamins that we have to have in our body to function. So when we take some of these vitamins, especially if you're taking some of the multivitamins that have certain fat soluble vitamins, you need fat to take it around in the body. We need the fat for it to kind of dissolve into the fat so it can be transported into our body. So let's take a look at the nutrition labels for fats. We have avocados. That's a popular fat because it is a natural fat. And if we have about a cup of a cup of, I was just going to find, I can't find my cup, which is about 150 grams. Then we look at how much fat. So here again, fat, carbohydrates, protein. What are we looking at? We're looking at 22 grams of fat. And I don't want to say fat and it be like, ooh, fat. It's good. Fat is good. There's a lot of fat that's good, especially natural fats are great. So we have 22 grams of fat, and then here we have carbohydrates. And what is the carbohydrates for again? Those are going to be broken down into sugar. Did you say sugar? I can't hear you. Okay, sugar. And then protein, 3 grams. So when we're looking at this, It's going to be for energy. If I'm going to eat the avocado, pretty much I'm eating this so I can have energy. That's what I'm telling my body. Use the carbohydrates first, then and then the fat's going to be used secondary. Protein is just going to be broken down immediately for building structures. The body doesn't want to save it for fat unless we have a bunch of it. It can turn into energy if we need to, if the body needs to. Let's look at French fries. This is a Wendy's medium French fries. We have fat, carbohydrates, and protein. So look how much fat we have, 16 grams. Carbohydrates, we have 47. So that's pretty much from the potatoes. And this is going to break down into a lot of sugar. So we have carbohydrates and fat, and then we have a whole 5 grams of protein. So it's not without, but when we look, if we can easily look at this and see, this is all just for energy that's going to be stored. And if we're not using it, it's going to be stored as fat. Then we have this part that's going to be broken down to be used to build structures. So I want you to get this idea of when you are eating something that you know, what is it going to be used for? Am I eating this? Am I eating carbohydrates and fats? That's going to be for energy. And if I'm not using that much energy, it's going to be stored away for later as fat. Or am I eating protein, and that's going to be broken down to make structures? If I don't have the fat or carbohydrates coming in, then the body's going to have to go to your savings account, the fat in your body already, and break down that fat so it can have some energy. That's what your fat storage is for. So we're going, oh my God, I got to get some of this fat off of me. That's when you don't have energy coming in. Your body has to go to your fat stores to burn for your energy. That's the only thing it's for. So that means we have to learn how to get it to burn the energy off of us that we already have stored. That's if you want to lose weight. And when I say lose weight, I mean lose fat, not muscle. Muscle's in our weight. So we want to lose fat. And we want to preserve our muscle, okay? So that's what we need to learn how to do. Here is a McDonald's hamburger. And that is a classic looking McDonald's hamburger right there. Fat's 9 grams. And look, what are we mostly eating when we eat the McDonald's hamburger? Even though it's got meat in it, mostly what we're eating is it's going to be broken down into sugar. 31 grams of sugar. Then the next thing, it's got 12 grams of fat, but it outweighs it sugar by far. And then, 31 grams of carbohydrates and 9 grams of fat. So predominantly, again, it's fat and carbohydrates. And then there's a little bit more protein in here. So again, what we're eating here is a little protein and a whole lot of energy in this meal. Then we have a Big Mac. Ooh, y'all all know, this is classic, a Big Mac. And I'm not criticizing any of the foods that I'm using. I'm just using foods that we all know. So, and I'm not saying don't eat any. I just want you to know what you're eating. I'm just the messenger. And then you figure out if you need it or not or want it. So on this one, the Big Mac, we have 30 grams of fat, 45 grams of carbohydrate, of sugars, and 25 grams of protein. So we have 2 meat patties. There's probably like something else like in the cheese and stuff that has a little more protein. But the here where it says the sugars, these are usually referred to added sugar in it. That's probably into the bun, for example. But still, all carbohydrates break down into a sugar molecule. And this dietary fiber here, that 3 grams, is included in that 45 grams. So it's more like 42 grams that's going to break into sugar. Fiber is a type of carbohydrate, but we don't digest it. And it goes through our digestive system. they that can help in slowing down some of the processes of getting so much sugar at one time. But then there's also this stuff goes out in our stool when we poop. And there also is bacteria that lives in our digestive system that can eat the fiber. They live off the fiber also. They process it which we don't process, and they live off of it. Okay, protein. Yay! Protein. Only way you can get muscle. Only way you get your tissues. Only way you have structures and chemicals in your body are by proteins. Proteins are made of proteins. But it makes up everything. Made of and they're called amino acids. So these amino acids come together in different types of ways, and then they build different proteins. It's like a puzzle. So they're made of a combination of these amino acids. They build, repair tissues, muscles, bones, hormones are made of proteins. Also some fats too. Enzymes, which help to keep the cells functioning. And it's key to survival. Can be used as an energy source. If we don't have fat and we don't have carbohydrates, it can also be turned into an energy source to be used. But the body really ain't wanting to use it for energy. It just wants to build its structures with it, because fat and carbohydrates can't build the structures. Eggs, fish, meat, beans, tofu, yogurt, edamame, nuts, shrimp, cheese, milk. All of these things are nice sources of protein. So let's look at a nutrition label for protein. I don't know if everybody knows about El Pollo Loco, but El Pollo Loco has grilled chicken and tacos, but it's pretty good. Let's look at the chicken breast. El Pollo Loco chicken breast. Total fat 9 grams. Carbohydrates 0, so there's not the sugar in there. It's not going to break down into sugar. And protein 36 grams. So what are we getting in this food? If we order or made chicken breast in general, it's not just the El Pollo Loco. Chicken breast in general is going to have high protein and a lower fat content if it's the breast. If it's the legs, for example, it's going to have some more fat, but these are natural fats with the meat. It's going to have high protein with a little more fat in it, which is also great. Tasty, fills you up. So protein and fat will make you full, and it sends hormones that tell you you're full. Carbohydrates, on the other hand, make you hungry. That's why you can eat a lot of carbohydrates and still want more. You can eat a lot more because there's a hormone that's secreted that makes you hungry, believe it or not. So you're not crazy that you eat a bunch of carbohydrates when you find out how much you are eating in carbohydrates, and you stay hungry. You're not full, and within an hour you want something else. You start craving it. Okay, I put this in here to give you a real just a quick visual on advertising. So the advertising on this Hot Pocket, I am not mad at Hot Pockets. I thought like the lean Hot Pockets. I lived on lean Hot Pockets. My son lived on regular Hot Pockets. I did not have any problem with Hot Pockets. But now looking at it, a Hot Pocket, this is a high protein Hot Pocket. This says high protein. So when we look at the nutrition label for this, looking at this, y'all look at this. The fat, 13 grams. Carbohydrates, 34 grams. That's like the soda. It's more than soda. So it's got the fat and carbohydrates. And look how much protein. 14 grams. Most of this is for an energy source. 34 grams of carbohydrate. This Hot Pocket is mostly carbohydrates, the sugars, and then 13 grams of fat. And it's about the same as the fat level. The protein is only 14 grams. This is not, it's not a high protein meal, but it may be high protein for a Hot Pocket. So it's just in the advertising, I just want you to be aware that it says it's high protein. And it might be high protein for a Hot Pocket when you look at other Hot Pockets. But in this meal, you're getting a high carbohydrate meal also. It's mostly high carbohydrate. And then you have fat and protein there. So 14 grams of protein, but when we look over here to the eggs, for example, this is only one egg. And if we looked at the one egg, it's got 6.5 grams of fat, half a gram of carbohydrate. So we know that it's not carrying a lot of sugar. And I'm not saying the carbohydrates are bad. And then it has 8.2 grams of protein. So if we had 2 eggs, then that would be 16 grams of protein, which would be more. Just these 2 eggs, 2 regular eggs would be, oh no, that's a jumbo. 2 eggs would be more protein than this Hot Pocket, than this whole Hot Pocket, because if it was looking for a protein source, then this is a nice clean protein source with a little bit of fat and a tiny bit of carbohydrate, and you know what you're getting. If you in looking at this advertisement and you get a high protein Hot Pocket, you're only getting the 14 grams of protein and a whole lot of other stuff that you may not need. Just for you to be aware, just to start being conscious of what do I need, what do I don't need in the food I'm eating. And you'll be surprised if it's packaged on what you actually are getting when you look at the labels. So the point of this today is to look at the labels and know what we're looking at. And it's not complicated. Y'all, all you do is, please, for everything, there are apps that you can just download on your phone and look up everything and see what's in there. The power of insulin. Now, you might have heard about insulin before, and because there's a lot going on, y'all. There's a lot going on. And I get triggered by this whole thing, and I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole right now. But insulin is this powerful hormone. It's a powerful hormone that is secreted when we take in carbohydrates. It gets secreted in other times too, but the majority, this is the biggest thing, one of the biggest things insulin does, is when we eat the carbohydrates, then the carbohydrates break down to sugar. So all of these sugar molecules get broken down and then they go into our bloodstream. And the cells are waiting for their dinner. They want this sugar. And they probably can sense the sugar floating around the bloodstream. That I put a little something on it. That's what I said. But the only way, all of these trillions of cells in our bodies that are alive, waiting for this sugar, the only way they can get it is by this hormone, insulin. Insulin gets secreted out. It goes into the bloodstream. And then the insulin takes the sugar out of the bloodstream and then goes and delivers it to the cell. It kind of knocks on the head of the door of the cell. The cell opens up and then it gets the sugar. So that's what insulin does. So the more sugar that goes into the bloodstream, the more insulin that goes out into the bloodstream. And then the insulin goes and grabs the sugar and takes it out of the bloodstream and then gives it to the cell. So as the insulin's doing that, then the blood sugar goes down. It gets to a certain level in our bloodstream. The body stops secreting the insulin. It's like, okay, enough of the blood sugar is out of the bloodstream and it's gone all to the cells. Then the insulin can kind of calm down. But what happens is When we go years and years and years, day after day after day, all the time, carbohydrates. When you think about it, add up how many carbohydrates you take in all day when you look at these labels. And see that most of the time, if you're most of the time taking in carbohydrates all day, your insulin is being worked. It is on overtime. There is not this type of carbohydrate and insulin issue in nature. There's no way you can go to a tree and buy muffins and a cake and have a beer, and there's all of these things that are not in nature, that we have an overabundance of carbohydrates. So now we can just walk into a grocery store and get all these packaged things really easily and just start mealing from morning to night. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, all the way through the day. A lot of it being carbohydrates slashed with the sugar, which is very addictive. The more carbohydrates, the more insulin. So then the amounts of insulin that's needed, it's what happens is, for some reason, the cells don't want to take in the sugar anymore. So then the body starts making more insulin. Then it works for a while, and then it doesn't work anymore. Then the body starts making more insulin. The problem becomes insulin levels get higher and higher and higher in the body, and it's not working anymore. They call that adult onset diabetes, or diabetes type 2. So usually as we get older, over a few decades, there becomes a sugar problem. Is our bodies cannot process all the sugar, and the blood sugar levels start staying high, and then we got the sugar problem. And we just need to stop with putting the sugar in there so it can go down. That's what we need to do. Nobody's saying that. But this is a big problem, and that sugar starts clogging everything up in the body, and it starts destroying the kidneys and eyes, and people start losing body parts. And so that's for another video. But I just want to give you a heads up that we have to pay attention to what's going in, y'all, because these disease processes are directly related to what we're putting into our bodies in general, okay? And water. We have so many options of drinking things that are not straight water, and people think, oh my gosh, it's water, there's nothing in it. So I'm not saying don't drink anything if it's not pure water. I'm not saying that. I'm saying water is what's key to our survival. That's what we need. And it is when our body is getting enough water, we don't get dehydrated. It's very cleansing. There's a water balance we have to have in our body. It's done with water, that chemical water. So please pay attention to that, because sometimes we feel like crap. We might feel like crap, and it may be just because we're dehydrated. Most adults are. So please start to put water high on the respect list. That's what I'm suggesting. If it's not pure water, then it's got something in it. And there's only three things: carbohydrate, fat, or protein. So if the water doesn't have just water, then what else are you drinking? Because everything that we take in, it's one of those: sugar, fat, or protein. And please just pay attention to what that is in your water, all right? And why you're drinking that. What do you need from there? And start to just know. I'm not telling you to do anything. Just know. I just want you to know. Just start with that. Just know. Okay? Just know. So what next? So maybe you want to lose fat. And usually you hear lose weight. I don't want you to start thinking of losing weight. I want you to start thinking of losing excess fat, because the healthy tissue that we have, like muscle, we need to maintain that. That's very difficult to build back up. So we need that. We don't want to waste that away. So you want to lose fat, and or maybe you want to gain tissue, healthy tissue, or fat. Or what should I eat? What should I drink to get to those goals? What happens if I've been told that I have high blood sugar, prediabetes, or type 2 diabetes? What if I feel like crap? What are the things that I can do? Well, those are for the next videos because we can't do that in one little video. But there are answers to that stuff. And it really isn't complicated. You might think it's complicated because I don't want to give up that stuff. But it isn't complicated, okay? Trust me on this. Because I've been there and had to do it myself too. So I'm with you. I felt the same way. So this is also a caveat that I always want to say. Please be aware. The healthcare system is not there to make you healthy. And what I mean by that is, the healthcare system that we have set up now, when you have something going on, that usually they might prescribe something for you to alleviate some of those symptoms. It doesn't solve the problem though. If your blood pressure is high, if your blood sugar is high, if your fat levels are high in your bloodstream, that doesn't solve. Taking a pill is not solving the problem. It's what's causing the problem in the first place. So I'm not saying that all medicines are bad. I'm not saying the healthcare system is bad. I'm saying we need to be aware of what we're putting in our bodies that may be poisoning us and making these problems. And a pill ain't gonna help, especially if we keep on putting it in and we don't even know that's what it is. So you need to make sure that you understand what you're putting into your body and to your loved ones' bodies, especially if you have children, okay? So the healthcare system is good at emergencies. If you need surgery, an accident, if something happens, then that is amazing. But these chronic illnesses that are going on, when you start feeling like crap, you have depression, you have diabetes and high blood pressure and all these chronic problems that are popping up. We got to make sure what we're putting in our bodies that may be causing that in the first place. Those aren't just diseases you catch. These are processes that happen, and we have a lot to do with it, with all of the stuff that we put into it. So you need to be aware of that. And the medications are not going to fix you. Trust me. They don't fix you. They don't fix the problem. If you keep on doing what you're doing, it usually just gets worse. So our food is making us sick. This is a general statement. We do need to take responsibility for our health and our loved ones and just say no to unhealthy, money-making, addictive laboratory food. Oops, did I say that? Oh, no, that was just on the slide. I just said that. I'm just saying. It's addictive for a reason, y'all. It's addictive for a reason. So, yeah, I said I'm telling.